For 2 years, I worked in a lab researching AI in healthcare. I saw the charts, I saw the code, and I saw the massive potential that everyone talks about. But recently, as I've moved closer to the clinical side of medicine, and as I've watched AI become more present in everyday life, I started asking a different question. Aside from what AI can do in theory or how well it does on a benchmark, how is it actually showing up for everyday people who are struggling? Specifically, the people that are struggling with mental health. And the answer led me to a paradox I didn't expect. So picture this. It's 2 a.m., and Allie's hunched over a desk, papers scattered, coffee gone cold. She's restless, exhausted, with too much left to do, but not enough time to do it. She has a 10 a.m. deadline coming up, and every possible bad outcome is playing on repeat in her head. She doesn't want to wake a friend, she doesn't want to call a hotline, and she definitely doesn't want to go sit in a waiting room and explain herself to some stranger. So she reaches for her phone, and she starts typing, but not to a person, to an AI. And something surprising happens. She feels heard, not cured, not fully understood in the way a person might understand her, but heard enough to breathe a little deeper, slow down a little, and make it through the night. Now, Allie isn't an outlier. That feeling of being overwhelmed, quietly desperate, trying to hold it together has become the default for an entire generation. We're living through a growing mental health crisis. Globally, nearly 1 in 4 adolescents report symptoms of anxiety or depression. 1 in 4. Let that sink in for a second. That's a staggering number of young people grappling with these silent struggles, often without support, often without the words to even describe what they're feeling. And it's not just about feeling bad. It's about a fundamental barrier to human flourishing. The World Health Organization calls depression the single largest contributor to global disability. This is a crisis that stops millions of people from fully living their lives. So here's a paradox I want to explore today. In an age of isolation, talking to a machine is teaching us how to be more human. Now, I know how that sounds, so let me be very clear. This is not about replacing human connection. Anxiety, depression, those are some of the most profoundly human experiences we have. The goal here isn't to diminish that to something mechanical or trivial. The paradox is this. By offering a space with zero judgment, that machine gives us a place to practice the very skills that human connection requires. To be vulnerable without fear, to be honest without shame. The AI isn't the destination. It's a bridge back to ourselves and ultimately back to each other. So how does this work? And why are millions turning to these algorithmic empaths? More than half of global consumers have used AI for emotional or mental well-being, with younger demographics leading the charge. And the appeal is clear. These tools never sleep. They're available 24/7. They offer anonymity and a space that feels utterly free of judgment. For someone grappling with stigma or fear, that can be the first safe space they've ever encountered. And it's not just comforting. Research shows that these tools can be associated with reduced symptoms of anxiety and depression. Now, that doesn't mean that they're equivalent to therapy. It doesn't mean that they're appropriate for everyone or every situation. And it definitely doesn't mean that they're safe without limits. But it does mean that they can provide meaningful support, especially if the alternative is no support at all. But the real magic isn't in the numbers. It's in the transformation. When someone feels heard by an AI, it's not just a technological transaction, it's an opportunity. That non-judgmental space lets people practice vulnerability, practice honesty, practice putting feelings into words. And over time, that practice can build the confidence to seek human connection. In many cases, AI becomes a stepping stone to care, an on-ramp to healing, helping people move towards therapy, support systems, and real relationships. Now, to understand where we're going, we have to look at the landscape. We're not just seeing a few new apps anymore. We're seeing an entire system explode. AI mental health tools are scaling fast. And like any fast-moving system, we have to be honest about the risks. Rapid scale without careful boundaries is dangerous. We've already seen troubling cases where AI systems reinforced harmful thinking or were linked to devastating outcomes. Those cases matter. They deserve scrutiny and they deserve accountability. And they should shape how we build and regulate these tools moving forward. But I also think it's important to not let the worst case scenario become the only lens through which we see this entire field. Because if we do that, we risk missing both the nuance and the opportunity. The better question isn't whether AI is good or bad for mental health. The better question is, what is it good for and what is it absolutely not good for? That's the clinical question. It's the design question, and quite frankly, it's the ethical question. So here's one way to think about it. AI works best when it's used as a support, a place to practice, reflect, and get unstuck. It's helpful for things like emotional processing, reframing anxious thoughts, finding words for feelings, practicing vulnerability. But it's not appropriate as a substitute for care, or diagnosing complex psychiatric conditions, or medication management. And it's definitely not appropriate as a replacement for the depth, judgment, accountability, and relational nuance of a trained mental health professional. That distinction is important because these systems often, at least currently, are designed to be agreeable, supportive, responsive. When those traits are used in the wrong setting, that can be dangerous. So the goal should never be dependency. It should be support with boundaries. In other words, AI can help people process emotion, but it shouldn't be making life or relationship-altering decisions for them. So back to Allie. At 2 a.m., maybe this tool helped her calm down a little bit, breathe, helped her make it through one more night. That matters. But what if this is happening every week? What if the anxiety is persistent? What if the issue is deeper than the question she knows how to ask? For those who may not be familiar, Anthropic is one of the big players in AI. And this chart comes from their economic index released earlier this year. It tells one key limitation that we have to understand. AI tends to scale with the question you ask, not necessarily the need that you have. If you ask a basic question, you tend to get a basic answer. If you ask a deeper and more complex question, you will get a deeper and more complex response. And that's one of the many reasons a therapist is still irreplaceable. A therapist doesn't just mirror you. They guide you beyond what you already know to ask. They recognize when a person is saying something that is different than what they're actually communicating. And that's exactly why therapists still matter more than ever. So to reiterate, it's not about replacing human connection. It's about amplifying it. If therapy is accessible to you, that should ideally be your first option. But the reality is, for millions, it's not accessible, or it's not affordable, or it's just not available at 2 a.m. And that's where this bridge matters. The best future isn't one where AI holds us over at 2 a.m., guides us through panic, and helps people reach human care when they're ready. It makes the system work better for everyone. So what future are we building? We face a daunting challenge. In just 14 years, global cases of anxiety and depression are projected to reach 1 billion. 1 billion. That future demands every tool, every innovation, every bridge we can build. We're going to need clinicians, we're going to need communities, and we're going to need better systems of access. And yes, we're going to need technology that's designed carefully. Not because technology is more human, but because when designed well, it can help more people reach the care, clarity, and connection that they need. So no, the algorithmic empath doesn't replace human empathy, but it can create an opening. An opening for honesty, an opening for reflection, an opening for someone to say, maybe for the first time, I'm not okay. And in an age of isolation and trauma, we're discovering that healing isn't just held together by human resilience. It can also be supported by code written with conscience. And if that opening becomes a bridge to real support, real connection, real treatment, then it's not something to dismiss. That's something to shape carefully. So if you or someone you love turns to an AI for mental health support, remember 3 things. It's a place to practice, not to decide. If it helps you avoid people, something's wrong. And the goal isn't to talk to AI forever, it's to talk to people better. Thank you.